Hello there everyone and welcome to one of our final news posts for Imperial Civil War 2.2. Today we're going to be talking about the era system and some of the changes we've made to that in 2.2. So as usual, if you prefer the text version of these news posts, there's a link in the description to that. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the previous versions of the mod, the era system was the system by which tech is determined in Imperial Civil War. So it's a mix of a narrative system and a tech system. So there were 5 distinct eras, each with different rosters for the factions based on what the time period was. So these are the Isard era, the Thrawn era, the Palpatine era, the Dala era, and the Pelion era. So players would progress through the eras by killing the Imperial leader, so whoever from that list was leading the Empire, you'd kill them and then you'd move on to the next tech level, and then the Empire was sort of trying to stop that. The purpose of this system was essentially to tie story and tech into each other, and while this goal was accomplished to some extent, there were a few major issues that this still presented. So first and foremost, while the Empire of the Hand and the New Republic would always benefit from an era change, Imperial players were often unaware that while the number was getting higher, so this here, they didn't necessarily benefit from era changes in the same way. And then people would be like, oh, well, why do I have to get my hero killed to progress? When it's not necessarily the progression for you. So it's not a direct tech system. Higher numbers aren't always better. And secondly, while it was meant to be a narrative system, and it certainly added some depth to those who were, or some depth for those who were familiar with the lore, it wasn't especially intuitive for players who are less familiar with this period in Star Wars. So finally, for those Imperial players who did understand that going higher in eras wasn't always better, but still wanted to go to a specific era, there wasn't really much of an alternative to trying to like fly your hero around and get them killed, which was in some cases more difficult than others, because you might not find a fleet big enough to directly kill your Eclipse or your Executor class within the first couple of planets. So we're trying in 2.2 to solve or at least mitigate some of these issues, and I'm going to show you some of the different ways that the eras can progress here. So we're adding a bit more depth and variation to era changes and the methods by which they can occur. So we basically want to add more story, make it a bit clearer to the players exactly what's going on, and even change some of the circumstances for how they occur. So in this post, we're going to go over some of those changes. So some of you may remember that one of the first changes we actually announced for 2.2 before it took on the scope it has was a regicide feature, which was essentially where you could just purchase an upgrade and it will progress to the next era as if the leader had died. And we ultimately decided that while this was a good addition, it could be expanded a lot more to work better into the story. So each era now has 3 ways they can progress. That's usually. So there's the voluntary way, the involuntary way, and the timed way. So you can either choose to go forward in eras, which we're going to show you. That's the one I'm going to cover in the news post here, because I was thinking about doing showing off how all the different possible changes work, but I'd be here like all day trying to record it. So there's the voluntary way, which is, like I just said, you are offered a chance by the next leader to progress the era to support them against the current leader, and then that works that way. There's the involuntary way, which is the way it's always been, where you get the hero killed, or you kill the enemy hero and you move on to the next era. And then there's also the timed way. So after a certain amount of time, events will take place that will move the eras along. So essentially the Imperial player has to take advantage of their power spikes. They have to plan around when they want the era to change. But the timed events basically occur with things that were happening independent of whatever choices you may be making. And so generally there's some advantage to being proactive with the era changes over just losing the hero or going with the timed events. We're going to cover what the differences are right now. So it can all have different effects depending on the leader. The map you're playing on can have some effect, and the era you're changing between. So there also tends to be a few more events within the eras, and we plan to expand on both the additional events and some of the era change stuff as we progress. But it's a pretty complicated thing right now. There's so many different ways that it could fail that we want to make sure we have it all working properly before trying to go too much deeper. And we've also done some stuff where we're trying to make the holocron just display the exact way to go between the eras, what the era currently is, what it means, and what can happen if you progress a different way. So I'm just going to unpause the game here and we're going to see our first era change. But you should also notice that you don't actually start with a Sard anymore. So some of the eras have been split in half. So era 1 isn't just Director Isard. the first part of Era 1 is Sate Pestage. So I just paused right at the end of week 2. Isard's going to come offer us Project Ambition right now. So, if you have yet to hear of me, I am Isan Isard, Director of Imperial Intelligence. I see you have pledged yourself to the service of Sate Pestage. You know as well as I do that he is unsuitable to lead our empire. I'm planning his removal should you wish to assist. This can be done with or without you, but your assistance will certainly expedite the process. Pestage will be mine, and after him the empire of my master. Nothing will stop me. We try to work in actual quotes from the characters to these wherever we can, but some of the it's Star Wars. Some of the writing's kind of weird, but so yeah, these are the different things that will happen with the era change events when you're going between Sate Pestage and Isan Isard. So for voluntary progression, you can get this upgrade here and complete Project Ambition before Coruscant falls. So in addition to killing Sate Pestage, the era can progress here. Well, I've actually turned all the AI off, so I don't need to pause that. But if Coruscant falls or Sate Pestage dies, then Isard takes over. But if you do Project Ambition here, you also get additional heroes. So there's 8 Convarian, Afshin Makati, and Milton Tackle. There's going to be some of those, and I think this is already 8 Convarian, but he needs to be removed from the starting spawns. So yeah, we're gonna do it that way. I've made all the stuff a bit cheaper and go a bit faster for the purposes of this video, but in addition to some of the either or events, so like whether you get the heroes or not, there are certain effects that will take place regardless of what happens. So I'm just gonna pause here. So after Project Ambition, the fall of Coruscant or Sate Pestage's death, Zero Command will take control of the following planets if the Empire controls them. So there's an emergent faction event that's tied to this one, where K-List and, if it were on the map, also a Brigade Array, would flip over to Zero Command's control. So some of this can vary based on which GC you're playing. So like if K-List wasn't here, if a Brigade Array wasn't here, then Zero Command wouldn't spawn. And that might be the case in like Essence of War. This is currently the Art of War map. I guess I should say, if you want to see more of these changes in depth, starting Friday of this week on this channel, I'm going to be running a playthrough in Empire's End, which is the other major Era Progressive GC. So we've already done an Art of War playthrough, but it didn't have quite all the Era Progressive events. But anyways, we're just waiting for Project Ambition to finish here. I'm going to speed that up a bit. So yeah, you basically just want to decide when you want the era change to happen, and how much you think you can get out of the heroes in your current roster. Generally, also, when you're doing the voluntary era changes, you don't tend to lose the heroes in the same way. Some of that's still not finished, but that's ultimately the plan. You can see here, Kalis 6 is now part of Zero Command territory, and we have Isard. So this is Director Isard. All Imperial forces are now under my control. My wish is the death of the rebellion. Now with the Empire in my hands, there'll be no one to stop me from making that wish come true. So if you just wait a little while, you can already get the event thing, but Thrawn will come in and ask you, I think it's usually a 3-week timer, and I'd like to tie the actual unlocking to that, but, you know, hasn't happened yet. We've still got about a month and a half where we're going to be working on this. The open beta is supposed to start this week, but anyways. This is Grand Admiral Thrawn. I'm currently preparing to conclude my work in the Unknown Regions and return to the Empire, which I seem to notice has some need of my assistance in Zendor. No doubt this will mean Isard will desert. If you should prefer my earlier return, I'm prepared to assume command of the Imperial fleet as necessary. So you have the air progression event thing here. Some of these aren't set to complete properly. Project Ambition does, but the other ones are still being worked on. So with Thrawn, whether you get Isard killed, you do the voluntary recruitment of Thrawn, or you wait out the timer, the effects are all the same. So Thrawn still comes in and takes command. There's no positive or negative effect to either of the different methods, really. So Thrawn will either come back, he'll take over the Empire, Isard will flee. Because essentially there were some points in the lore where Thrawn was requesting some assistance from the Empire, and Isard would send him some stuff. Like that's how Soontir Fel got into the Empire of the Hand, because basically Isard was trying to keep Thrawn away from her, since he represented a bit of a threat to her authority and rule of the Empire. So since she's afraid of him, we thought it would make sense that when he comes back, which he was going to do regardless, she would flee in the same way that she does. And she ended up in the... It was either her or the clone that was in the future hegemony later, and that's going to be a represented thing in a later event as well. But let's get this going. Did I bid it on Coruscant? Yes, I did. And you'll see that Makati and Tackle stay around. Most of the other heroes will probably be changed to stay around. We still have to determine which ones we want to stay and which to go. Because the ones that are like super tied into a specific leader, we're going to leave in, or leave out. But anyways, I've prepared the fleet. It's time to begin our reconquest of rebel worlds and bring peace back to the galaxy. To prepare for what's to come. Their military abilities are undeniable, but their chances for long-term stability are non-existent. So there we go, we have Thrawn. So this is one that works slightly different between Thrawn and Palpatine than any of the other ones. This is actually going to cost 65,000 credits because you are getting the Eclipse. But with this one, unlike the other ones, if you get Thrawn killed, it doesn't automatically progress to the next era. You either have to wait out the longer timer, or you have to finish the upgrade to get established Dark Empire here. So there's actually a pretty significantly different event that can occur. Regardless, or actually, if Thrawn dies, before you finish the upgrade here, and before the timed event happens, which is Rook assassinating Thrawn, then the Kutrick hegemony, if it's under your command, will break off. So that's Rocinri, Kutrick, and Corvus Minor 4 on this map. On other maps, it might be slightly different planets, but it's basically anything that's around Kutrick. If it's under Imperial command, it's usually 3 planets max that will flip over and join the Warlord forces as the Kutrick hegemony. So this is one where you will generally want to get the voluntary upgrade at some point, even if you wait a little bit, so you can take advantage of Thrawn's combat bonuses, and you're going to be saving up money and trying to wait out the build timer on the Dark Empire stuff for quite some time as well. I'm just going to, hold on, did I actually get the, no, I didn't get the notification from Palpatine. So I'm just going to wait out that. So the rebel fools believe they have me beaten, but the Empire's victory is at hand. It's time we prepare for the ultimate victory over the rebellion. Alright, so upon completion of the relevant build option, Palpatine will join your forces with the Eclipse-class Superstar Destroyer Abyss. And if Thrawn dies or 60 weeks pass before you complete the build option, Thrawn will leave your service and the Kutrick hegemony will secede. That's Kutrick 4 and surrounding planets, which, as I said, in this one is Rocinri and Corvus Minor. So let's get Palpatine going. This is building much, much faster than it will in the final version. Alright, so
planetary control
there we get Biss and Palpatine. Time for the Empire's ultimate victory has come. Mobilize the fleets. So right now you'll notice that you're only getting like Palpatine, some MTCs, and Cedrus. We're trying to keep these events as sparse as possible during testing just to make sure all this stuff fires properly. Because if you have a unit that doesn't exist referenced in the Lewis script, the script will crash and then everything will stop working, which isn't ideal. So when it comes to the actual release build, a lot of these events will come with a lot more forces. But anyways, let's continue on here. So the next era in previous builds would have been Dala. But after Palpatine dies, now there's another sub-era, kind of like the first one was split between Sate Pestage and Isanisard, where Karnor Jax takes over and the Crimson Empire forms. So technically the mod is split into 7 eras technically, but we've still grouped them together as within the same era for some of the similar time periods, because there's not as much tech change between Palpatine and Karnor and Pestage and Isard. Eventually we might just make a display differently and then be a lot, that's probably a lot more simple for people. But the other thing with that is that there's like that weird no man's land between Thrawn and Palpatine if Thrawn dies. But we'll wait for Karnor to tell us what he's up to. I guess we'll build it at Biss. Here we go. As we speak, Palpatine's cloned bodies are susceptible to the poison I have infected them with. With or without your help, it is only a matter of time before this empire is mine. So with the era change event for Karnor, if you progress by helping Karnor establish and completing the build option, the empire will remain united and Palpatine and the Eclipse will be destroyed. So with Karnor's swap, you can voluntarily do it, and you get to keep most of your heroes, like I was saying earlier, but you also get to keep all of your territory. If, on the other hand, Palpatine dies on his own, like you get him killed in battle, or the uh, the 100 week, like, so for anyone who's kind of worried about the timed events, these are 60 to 100 weeks. So if you were trying to get to the final era with just the timers, you'd be at about week 500. So they're not really anything that's going to change the game too much. It just makes it a bit more doable for when you're not playing as the Empire and you can't find their heroes after a long time to keep the game moving along. So it's not like 20 weeks and then you lose your best ships or something. It's just 100 weeks for the Palpatine to Karnor one, 60 weeks for most of the other ones. But anyways, so yeah, so if that happens and Palpatine dies, then some of the other warlord territory will break off. So some of the, like the capitals, the Greater Maldrude, Pentastar Alignment, that kind of thing, they'll flip over and join who they joined after Palpatine died in Dark Empire. So a lot of this stuff is just to add some story elements. It's not like you're going to lose a huge amount of your territory, but there will be some fresh stuff for all the other warlord fleets that hang around. There'll be a lot of these events are trying to make the game stay a bit fresher as you go through. So anyways, the galaxy has changed. It's mine for the taking. I will rule the Empire. We have Karnor here on Biss, and the next one is going to be Dala. So I guess while we're waiting for that, I will talk about the Hapes Consortium as well. So on that note, with trying to keep the game kind of progressing and having like fresh stuff to do, so it's not just like monotonous after a certain point, we've got other emergent faction events that can occur. In the demo, we had the corporate sector emergent event that can happen when Zinj dies. That's still in here. But you also have stuff like the Hapes Consortium, which after about I want to say 115 or so weeks, the Hapes Consortium will emerge as an active faction on the galactic map. So you can't go into them quite yet, but if you have the whole territory surrounded, they'll emerge. They'll try to fight a little bit. And the other one with that is in Era 5, the Duskin League will emerge as well. The exception to that is if you are playing as the Duskin League, in which case you start with them, so they don't emerge later. Because the Duskin League is going to be playable in every GC where they're present, and that's going to be a lot more than it was in previous releases. But anyways, this is Admiral Natasi Dala of the Maw Research Facility. I'm ashamed and disgusted to see what has become of the Empire in my absence. I had no intention of becoming a political leader, but you have given me no choice. I cannot leave the Empire in the hands of fools like you. So if you complete the build option, Dala will take command of the Imperial forces from the Gorgon. So Dala actually has two possible flagships. There's the Gorgon, which is what she had in the Maw fleet, and then there's Nighthammer, which you can do some other stuff to get for her. But let's do that. If you do the build option for this one, you keep all your heroes. If you don't, you essentially clear out the leadership of the Empire. Well, Pelion wouldn't be here anyways, because Pelion at this point was in Greater Maldrude. So he's one that probably wouldn't be on this list right now anyways. But anyone that's still surviving from your previous eras, if they want to help Dala, which is essentially what you're saying when you're building the upgrade to install Dala as the leader. Let's see here. Yeah. So they would stick around because they didn't oppose her attempts to reunify the Empire. If Karnor dies, or if the 60 weeks pass, then it essentially means that no one was trying to help her, and she does the whole sauce beacon gas chamber thing. So we'll just finish that event here. And then the final one will be Pelion like usual. With the Dala to Pelion one, we want to put in a little bit more of a timer before Dala decides that she would give up power to Pelion. But anyways, the destruction of the Imperial fleets by other Imperials must come to an end. We will stop the ridiculous infighting these warlords have perpetuated, and the Empire will retake its rightful place in the galaxy. So now we have Dala at the Maw. We have her Maw fleet there. And Brachus is here as well. So, who is next? Pelion. So with this one, it's actually a little different because it's not Pelion that approaches you and says he wants to take power. Just like in the lore with the Era 4 to Era 5 transition, it's Dala that offers to do it, and then eventually her timed event is that she steps down voluntarily, and Pelion is given power, and you can just choose to have her resign early, essentially. The difference with hers, I'm going to wait because Dala's going to pop up pretty soon here. Oh, I did set them all to finish. Never mind. They're all completed there. I want to change the titles for them all to be a bit more narrative, I guess. So I believe my time in command of the Empire is coming to a close. I believe the right person to lead the Empire at this point is Gilad Pelion, though he may never admit it himself. I intend to step down in favor of him, see if you can convince him to take charge earlier, and I will focus on reuniting the last remnants of the Warlord forces in the core. So if you complete the build option and install Pelion yourself, Pelion will take command of the Imperial forces, and Dala will return to your service with other forces later. So the benefit to doing the voluntary change with Pelion is that Dala will leave for a bit, and then she'll come back with the replacement warlords. I think right now she just respawns immediately in Scylla. But in the lore, what she did after Pelion took over was go to the core. There were a few people in the deep core that were still running some of the remaining forces of some of the warlords after she killed them. And what you can do if you do the voluntary one, or I think even the timed one was going to be like that, but Dala will come back with those. If you get Dala killed, she can't go and do that, so you don't get those extra forces. And so a lot of this stuff, like I said, is just to add some extra story elements to it, give a few different ways to progress through the era so there's a bit more replayability. And then with the timed events, again, it's very rare that those would be the ones that actually happen, but it's mostly just to keep the game progressing and make it so that like it's not this mad dash to get to Dark Empire and then you're just camping there with Palpatine sitting on the back line or something. And it also means that if the Empire tries to do that when you're not playing against them, there is some recourse to it. So you're not just stuck trying to hunt them down if you can't find them after a super long time. But anyways, that basically covers it. I guess we're just going to go and get the speech event from Pelion here, and then that'll do it for now. So like I said, the final playthrough that I'm going to be running to preview 2.2 is going to be in Empire's End. We're going to cover a lot more of these era change events. But anyways, our numbers have dwindled in futile attempts to reclaim something that was taken from us long ago. The galaxy is ours by right, we have lost it. The sooner we accept that, the sooner we can begin to understand what role exists for us now. It's time the Empire works its way towards our new future. The other thing I should mention is a lot of these leader holograms are still being redone. So a lot of these ones are fairly old. I guess since we've already seen all that, I'm going to just head over to the other GC where Delvardis is in, but Delvardis was the first one that's been redone by Benjin, who's our video guy. He did the, in addition to these holocrons, he does some 3D art for the mod, and he also was the one who did the video editing for the Imperial Remnant and New Republic trailer that we had a while ago for Ascendancy. But anyways, let's go Rider Authority. But yeah, so there will be a new playthrough starting in Empire's End this Friday on this channel, so if you want to subscribe and see that. But yeah, so that's basically what we're going for with these. Much better. But yeah, so thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to just read through these again, there's the link in the description to the text version. The open testing, or the semi-closed testing will be starting probably this Thursday, and then 2 weeks from now we'll be doing the open testing. That's all on the forums. So if you go through to the link, that'll take you to the forums, and if you look in the news section there, you'll be able to see how the testing will work. But we are about a month and a half out from release if everything goes as planned, and so far we think we should be well on the way, or right on track to get that done. So hope you're looking forward to some of these changes, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.